Welcome to Hashtag Trending Project Synapse for Saturday, September 13th. Welcome to everybody. And our panel, as usual, John Pinard, Marcel Ganger, and moi, Jim Love. So welcome. Thanks for joining us. I wanted to pick up from where we were last week, Marcel. I think it was really interesting. We did the show with Marcel last week, and we did a whole pile of different things you could do with images. So I went from the show and started doing stories for the week, and everything kept coming up about, oh, we're not being successful with AI. We're not implementing AI. We're not saving money with AI. These are the hard times for AI. And it was really interesting. And a lot of it comes out of this MIT survey that we talked about that said that only 5% of companies are getting a financial benefit from AI. I still find that hard to believe, but I'll accept that that's the number. But then is it just that they can't get a measurable benefit? And so we go through, and of course the doomers are out there and people talking about it's phony, it's not going to work. And I went back and said, okay, well, let's go back on this. And I'll go back through my own personal history on this. And I run the 2 podcasts. I'm not really that great at running the news website. I confess to that. There's a lot of work in there. But basically, I run the 2 podcasts. I do keep the news website up to date, sort of. And I produce the Saturday shows for 2 shows. And now I'm actually doing a music show as well. That, if I had to do that in the old company I was in, I would have used a portion of people, not all of their time, but I would have had 2 video editors working on the Saturday show, at least, and the weekday shows doing those. I would have had a producer that would have been taking care of the studio recordings and all of that. I would have had an artist, now not maybe, half a day a week, maybe, or 2-3 hours a day, doing the thumbnails that have to get done for this. I would have had what else would I have had? I would have had the editors. I would have had the producer. I would have had the artist doing this. I would have had to have somebody who was actually posting these to make sure that they got posted to Libsyn and all that sort of stuff. So, but that could have been just almost anybody. And then there's the preparation that you have to do for them and the recording. And believe it or not, I actually do some research and preparation. I know it doesn't, I know I make it look like I don't.
And then there's editing. Don't forget editing. Editing is a pain in the...
Oh my God. Yeah. But that's why I say I would have 1 or 2 video editors or editors who would have been working on it. What we used to do is I used to have to get Hashtag Trending done for latest 6 o'clock on an evening and Cybersecurity Today. And we hired somebody in Calgary. So we had a 2-hour difference, but they didn't mind working in the evening. And so all of the shows went to somebody who edited them all night. That's the audio shows. I couldn't do video, so I would have had to have a separate video editor to do the show. So we just didn't do video during the week. But if we did a 1-hour video show, this would sit with an editor for a day or a day and a half, even if they were working quickly. So that's what I'm saying. How many bodies is that? Let's say that's like 3 full-time bodies that I would need to have to run this show without AI. So I look at this and say, that's just what I'm doing for this one thing. Now, my own productivity, research. In the old days, a year ago, I wasn't as finely tuned for research. So I would have been going and looking at a whole pile of stories, getting them up, rewriting them, and then I'd have to get an editor who would actually check my rewrite. Because when you're working that fast, you're going to make stupid mistakes. Now, I use AI to check my text. So grammatically, because I don't know, I think 40 errors per minute now. It used to be 60 errors per minute. It's now faster. No, but I make stupid mistakes all the time. And so I've got an editor that goes through my copy and comes back to me. And also, I can fact check. And I do that with several places. Because I'll set off to say, if this, and I don't know, you guys worked on editorial stories, but you always get something and then it's not quite as true as it seemed in the story you read. So if I relied on one story or one set of data, I would miss something. So now I can actually fact check, and I fact check myself. So now let's add an editor to that. I think we're at 3.5, 4 full-time bodies for producing this. That's my world. And I've done that for over a year. And now what I'm working on next is to work on the social media part of this and get that automated, because it just takes too much bloody time. I posting it and doing all that stuff takes too much time. And now I'm looking at agents and going, hey, I can do this better than what's out there. I could get this posted to LinkedIn. I could get this posted to other places. I could take clips of the show and promote it. That's another person I would have to hire.
I think that's part of the thing, though, Jim, is that companies are, so I kind of look at it that there's two camps, right? There's the camp of those that are using AI as what we've called before, to play with it, right? To use it as a digital assistant type thing. Then there's the other side of the camp of the companies that are saying, oh, we're going to implement agentic AI, and our major ERP and so forth is all using AI, so we're going to implement that. I think there's two camps. The personal assistant side is pretty easy to implement and make use of and make yourselves useful. I mean, at our company, I know there's a lot of people that are using AI to help them write better emails and things like that. And to me, that's still of benefit. It still allows them to be more productive. But when you get into major implementation changes, like using agentic AI with your primary computer systems, that's a much bigger task and a much bigger project that takes more effort, takes more thought, more planning, and so forth. So I'm not surprised that people aren't finding a great deal of benefit out of that yet. And if they are jumping into it now, they probably haven't thought it through thoroughly.
Okay, you left out a very important word before the word benefit.
Oh, man, I thought you were going to say I was right.
No, you were right. But you left out a very important word which would have given additional gravitas
to
your argument, which is financial benefit.
Yes.
And I think that this is actually one of the places where it becomes a little bit more difficult. People are trying to, right now, are trying to ask the question, again, I want to say this as many times as I can possibly get out there. This is really, really early in a new technology.
Yes.
Yes, it's been 2.5 years since ChatGPT came out, but since people actually started using it to, try to figure out a way to integrate it into business, we're maybe like a year in at most at the moment. And a year in for a development cycle inside business is it's nothing. Do you have any idea how quickly administrations, particularly management, works? It doesn't move that quickly. It just, and right now they're trying to work at a speed and in a way that they're just not used to working. So they're still figuring it out. So that's thing number one. If you are looking at it purely as how much money did I save? How much did I cut off the top and so forth? You're just not really understanding what's happening out there. The question is, are you putting out a better quality product? Are you putting out, are you able to do research faster than you were able to do before? As Jim has rightly pointed out, when he's trying to put together his news program. These are the sorts of things that are measurable, but they're not necessarily measurable on the bottom line. Okay. You're not okay, so I put out more stuff. I did better research. I produced, more accurate material and so forth. But the bottom line, the actual dollars and cents at the bottom of that ledger haven't changed in any way. My quality has changed. My output has changed. And the ease with which I'm able to do things has changed. But there's no, major change on the bottom line. 1 year to business implementations, 5% of businesses are showing a positive return from the use of AI. That's huge. Let's turn it around that way. It all depends on how you play with the numbers. If what you're trying to do is put out a picture and say, hey, things really aren't that much better. It's we've only seen a 5% decrease in fatal accidents on the highways. 95% of accidents that were fatal before are still fatal. And that's 2 years after implementing seatbelts. 2 years later or a year later, we've got 5% more people living than were living the year before. This is big.
Well, and the other thing too,
sometimes you got to play with those numbers in a way that it makes a little bit more sense.
The other piece of this too is that one of the things that I've seen a lot of is people are using AI for chatbots and for making it easier for customers on their website or other places to get information. So that's not necessarily a revenue generator, but it is certainly a customer retention tool that, long term, you may keep customers that might not have come back.
So we might be dealing with two problems here, right? One is a problem of measurement.
Yes.
We don't know how to measure productivity gains. And I think that's important. So we look at your email example, and this is a tiny one. This is the baby, the training wheels case.
Yep.
I can write a better email. Now, that's going to affect you in one of two ways. One is I get a whole pile of emails. I really wish people would think about them, like, because they're just awful. And so that's already happening out there. So there's nothing, making that better is just going to increase the amount of time people spend. Right. Mm-hmm. How many times have you written an email where you went, I didn't get that across very well? Right. So when I write an email, I actually take a lot of time. It's,
and he still writes sincerely, Jim Love, at the end of it.
Yeah. Oh, I actually write all the best, but that's okay. My crafted signature. But what actually depends on who I'm writing to and what I'll do. That's a communication vehicle that's important. I mean, I get pitched for people with sales. Like, folks, look at your salespeople, because their emails suck almost uniformly. I can't remember the last good sales email I got, and no research on me at all. Know nothing about me. We're a tiny company. I'm not going to buy. If you're out there and you're a salesperson listening to this, I'm not buying anything from you. We barely make the expenses, if we're lucky, in a month on the podcast. I would really like to have more advertisers. My wife would really like me to have some revenue from all the stuff that I do. We're not there. And I'm hoping in the fall actually to turn a bit of that around with using AI to do marketing.
And I think Ian agreed with you, Jim, because we got all caps here. So I think he finds that he's not too impressed with those sales and marketing emails either.
If you were using AI to just research the companies, ask for some ideas about what they've done. Like, it takes 2 seconds to type, or 8 seconds to type it into Perplexity, ChatGPT, Gemini, and say, give me a little rundown on this company. What do they do? Because the successful emails, because we get, our podcasts are actually quite big. Like, Cybersecurity Today is enormous in terms of audience. 10 million downloads. It gets like 10,000 people a day that listen to it. This one gets 4,000 a day. It's just mostly Canadian, with some in the US. But Cybersecurity Today, so I'm getting like 14,000 people out there every day listening to something that we're putting out. And so you get that part of it. Well, people start to pitch you for guests, and I'm getting picked up by everybody. I get I don't know how many, I get maybe like 5 or 6 pitches a day for people coming in. Those are all done professionally. Those are sales calls that are different. They start out with, I watched your episode on this, and I was very intrigued you're going to read it.
Yep.
Even though you're busy, said, hey, Jim, I saw your episode on Hashtag Trending about this, and it was really, and now you're reading it. And now I'd like to pitch you a guest. That's a successful sales pitch. I'm interested in you. I know something about you. How much could you, you wouldn't measure that, but how much more benefit could people get just from doing that right now?
Well, okay, I'm going to stop you there and point out that you're just old at this point, because, you're thinking back to the good old days where you actually reached out to people and you spoke to them and you visited them in person and you went into an office and you were all there together. Like, you are way back in the past here, Jim. People don't do that anymore. And people don't actually bother to listen to the show if they're wanting to advertise to you or something like that. They have lists of numbers that they just call, and they have like a contact farm somewhere in China or wherever, where people are calling en masse, using phones and scripts and stuff like that. and they have no idea. And the reason they do that, and by the way, I'm not disagreeing with you. You find out what the customer is about. You have some idea of what it is that they produced in the past, particularly if you want to pitch a guest on the show. But the idea is that you use let's use Steve Bannon's, fire hose of bullshit. You just keep firing a whole pile of stuff out there. And if only a tiny percentage hits, okay, you have won, okay? And it doesn't require. So for you, your personal experience, you're going to go, well, obviously, I'm not going to answer any of these people. It doesn't matter because you're not, you're just one failure in 100,000.
I'm still talking to CIOs out there everywhere. None of them answer their phone. Nobody answers their phone anymore. Why? Because you're just going to get pitched and pitched and pitched. You have a spam filter that pulls all of those emails to nowhere. Who is selling? The people who are selling are the people who are doing it right. They're very successful. And yes, there is bullshit mountain where you're going to get a whole pile of stuff, but that's even coming to a collapsing halt. People are so frustrated by it that they just will not, like LinkedIn. And that's why they're always looking for some new place to come at you. You remember when you used to use LinkedIn and you could actually...
I haven't been on LinkedIn in months.
No, but I used to use it because it was the one place I could talk to people I knew in business.
Not anymore.
If I
now
got
it's another sales location.
Yeah, now it's full of sales pitches. Anybody who links up with you sends you an email, or not an email, but a pitch 2 seconds later. I know the bullshit mountain type thing that if you just throw enough of it, you're going to get some. But I still know that everybody I know that's buying anything seriously still buys on a form of relationship.
Right.
Except people
for the people, except for the people who are sending this stuff out en masse in large quantities, they don't actually care about the fact that it worked or didn't work with you. The only thing that they care about is that they have a tiny percentage of all the stuff that they sent out there that lands. And that tiny percentage is all they're about. Yesterday, so I have a Pixel phone, and my Pixel phone has an automated spam caller detection on it. Like, it'll warn me and say, this looks like spam, blah, blah, blah. And there's also a screen call feature, which is really cool. But I posted this in the Discord. I got a call yesterday. Hi, can we talk for a moment? And of course, it's like I'm supposedly calling from Indeed. I'm Crystal calling from Indeed. And I pasted this screenshot in the Discord server there. And of course, the last thing that I did, to your point, Jim, is I wrote down, prove to me that you're not a scammer. Who am I? Tell me something about myself. And of course, and then of course I posted a screenshot of my Pixel saying, this is likely spam.
Yep.
You go further than I did, Marcel, because I would just have ignored that and reported.
Sometimes I'm in a mood, though. Sometimes I like to mess with these people with the idea that they're actually people on the other end, as opposed to just
bringing this back around, though. And this is the stuff that's hard to measure, right?
Yes.
The things that are hard to measure, that you say, how much more effective could my salespeople be if they did a little bit of research? And I understand why in the old days nobody would do it. If you got 100 people to call, have you guys ever done cold calling? I actually did some when I started the company.
Yeah, I did,
and
like decades ago, but yes.
And what a soul-destroying effort that is. How tough that is. And you got it, no. You're going to hear 99 no's anyway, even if you've done all your work. But, so I understand why people wouldn't think, well, I'm going to research each person before I call them. But that's how it was done in the olden days. And in today's days, I think that would be refreshing. I could be wrong.
Yep.
But the example was getting off of sales, getting it back to ChatGPT. I think there are places where this could be really, really effective, but it wouldn't turn up as a financial benefit. You would just think, I got one sales guy who's really good.
But if you think about it, Jim, let's stay with that cold calling, utilizing AI. And, all it takes is a little bit of extra effort that says, use AI to research the companies that you have on that list and give it criteria. So I'll give you an example. I work for a financial institution. I can't tell you how many times I get LinkedIn and emails, saying, oh, I've got this great tool that will help you increase your sales. Well, hello, financial institution. Yes, we sell mortgages and things, but that's not our main business, right? I mean, we manage people's money. We're not really a sales company. So do some research. Know what the company is doing before you even include them in that list. If you can take a list of 1,000 companies and use AI to narrow it down to a focused 10 or 20 and send quality content to those individuals, you got a much better chance of getting.
Well, like I say, that's the stuff that people need to look at. Yes, to do some research and remembering that people's time is precious.
Pencil is all you need.
But this is something. So anyway, just going back to this and saying, so we've got the pieces where you can't measure. There's a third level, though, I think, the barrier. And that's what I wanted to talk about this morning, because Marcel went past this. I decided I was really going to get into the idea. And the idea I have for how you should be implementing this is look for stuff that you need to do. Look for things that bug you. Look for things that are... That's how I started this. I mean, that's why I ended up being able to do the things that I can do with the show. It wasn't because I had a grand plan. I just, when ChatGPT came out, I went, hey, I could use this to check my grammar better than even Grammarly. I could use this for ideas. I could use this for brainstorming. Oh, hey, look, this product is using it and they're using AI. What are they doing with it? And that's how this all happened. It was not a master plan of saying, I'm going to use AI to automate everything I do.
And that's the thing, is that if you look at, I mean, let's go back to the good old days of implementing a new software package. You document your requirements. Now they call them use cases, same thing. And you figure out what are your pain points that you're trying to solve. And I mean, this is no different. Figure out areas within the business that are broken and use AI to help you to fix those. There's all kinds of ways that you can use AI to improve processes.
You don't, where we fell apart with specs and with design of systems was we would get into the perfect system world.
Yes.
And that was the problem with specs. As you can say, okay, we always lied in IT. I always lied. And I didn't realize I was lying till it was too late, but I was lying. I'd come in with a whiteboard and say, we've got a whiteboard here. We want fresh thinking. We want everything that you need to do that you can make this system do. And you start out and you get all this, and everybody gets all their hopes and aspirations up there. And yes, it'll do all these things. And we get that together. Then we cost it. And we say, okay, we can't afford this. Let's take the nice to have out of it, right? Then we were still as full of a pile of things. We'd start building it and we'd start to run late. And we'd say, oh, we got to put this into phases, or we're going to implement this in phases. And implement it in phases was we'd do the stuff we knew we could do and declare a victory and move on. And then we try and get some money for the next phase. It was a shell game from the start. Part of it is the largeness of systems. I think where I've had the greatest impact in my entire IT career was at the beginning when it was 3 of us in a room, the designer, me being the project manager, analyst, and tester, and one other guy who coded a lot.
Yep.
We got more done with those 3 people. And then after the big system things, it's not that we didn't have some successes. We did. We did some really good things. But for the most part, we started to get back to things like we're going to do agile, we're going to do sprints, we're going to do, and I had more success in my later part of my career when I realized that doing big systems was a waste of time for me. You know, yes, there are going to be people who put in SAP and all this sort of stuff. I wanted to tackle a problem. We're late, can't pay invoices on time. Great, let's tackle can't pay invoices on time. They made millions. It was solving problems that were costing them money, costing them time, costing them clients. I think that's fair. And I don't think that's an unreasonable number to put on it. I think anybody paid me, $50,000, $60,000 to solve a problem that was going to save them $20,000. That never happened.
And that's the thing, is that it's supposed to be technology for business sake, not technology for technology's sake. And one of the things that I find far too often is people will say, oh, we got to implement AI. Well, what for? I don't know. We have to because everybody else is doing it. You have to figure out, how does it benefit you and how does it benefit your company?
Well, and I think you only
But
find that
sometimes you have to implement something because everybody else is doing it. Because if you're not, I mean, I know that this is hype, and I know that this is, keeping up with the Joneses. I realize that there's a component of that, but you also have to recognize that if other companies are implementing something that the public sees as proof that the company is growing, moving forward, and so forth, if you just say, well, I need to come up with reasons for doing this without actually showing that you're in the game, you are going to lose customers. You are going to fall behind. It sounds
Agreed.
It sounds like, well, I'm bringing in a technology looking for a solution as opposed to, looking for a solution.
No.
I think you're on the right track. I don't think we're at that. I think that's an excuse now.
But I think
it's to say AI's a big hype. So in the same way people said cloud is a big hype.
Yeah.
ERPs are a big hype. They're not. They're a technology.
The internet was a big hype.
The internet was a big hype. Yeah, where's the internet going to be?
If you've noticed, but it's still here.
But I'm not saying don't implement it just because it's new technology. But to me, that's the first phase, which is, we've talked about, that's the play phase. Go implement it, play with it, figure out what you can do with it. Because the last thing you want to do is implement, I don't care whether it's AI or anything else. You don't want to implement something that's going to make you less productive, less profitable, or reduce the customer satisfaction or any of that. So you need to implement it. You need to play with it to figure out how it best works for your organization and then build on that.
Right. But the play requires that you actually invest time, money,
Yes.
energy into the technology.
Exactly.
Oh, absolutely.
It'll work for you. You can't just write it off, on the basis that it's entirely just hype. Here's another thing too, okay? Like if we're back to this 95% thing, okay? If you are managing to improve the results that you're getting from using a particular technology, sometimes there are the ideas that tracking everything is hard and it doesn't always yield the results that you think it's going to do. And if you're tracking only a single set of numbers, and in this case, again, we're talking about dollars. How many dollars have I saved? How much have I cut off my expenses in the balance sheet and so forth? If that's the only thing that you're tracking, you're missing out the other 95% of the picture.
Mm-hmm.
And the other 95% of the picture is sometimes embarrassing. We are living at a time right now. And I'm going to set this up and tell you a story that's happened in the last couple of days with a friend of mine who was asking for my help. And of course, I suggested a solution that involved AI, and we'll get to why that fell apart or is falling apart. But if you're implementing these tools and you're looking for things, and the only question that you're asking is one question, you're missing the possibility that there's 95 other reasons out of 100 that things are actually going right. The story that I was going to tell you was I had a friend of mine who has been sort of, they've been playing with the idea of getting into the news business, specifically primarily political news reporting. And they're looking at Canada, basically everywhere, but they're trying to create if you'll pardon the expression, fair and balanced newscast, not in the way that Fox says they are, but they're not. So they're trying to go somewhere in, here it is with little, with no right, no left. This is just what's actually happening out there. And you do this. And of course, because for reasons that are their own, they want to use an avatar. But strangely enough, they want to use an avatar that is a face tracking avatar, primarily because they don't want to have an AI avatar. And of course, I'm pointing out things like, they're all AI to some degree. Well, I don't want to use my voice, but I don't want to use an AI tool that will change my voice. I want a AI voice changer tool. And like every solution where you could incorporate a simple solution that's based on AI is being refused out of hand. It's like, no, I don't want anything that uses AI. Like I realize AI could do this part of what I'm trying to do, including, by the way, Jim, a tool that you use, Descript, which I use as well.
Absolutely.
So, throwing all of these things out with the idea, and then of course, at the end of it, writing the words AI slop. We are living at a time right now where there is a huge backlash against AI, largely because of the perceived impact on jobs. Let's face it, that's something that does show up on the bottom line. How many people was I able to fire by bringing in this technology, which the three of us agree is the wrong approach? The approach is, how can we make our people more productive? How can we make their lives better, improve the way the business works and so forth without getting rid of everybody? That doesn't necessarily measure as as something that appears as a big, huge number on the bottom line. And because there is all this negative energy around AI, and it's out there, and I fight it on a daily basis, every solution that I proposed that even had the idea that AI might be involved in it in some way became bundled under the words AI slop. Okay. Yeah. Despite the fact that slop has been produced on the internet for years. There was even something about the idea that, using AI cheapens the medium in this case, YouTube. It's like, I don't know if you've paid any attention, but long before ChatGPT came on, there were content farms in overseas that were generating hundreds of thousands of videos a day, which were all basically just, brain rot. None of that stuff originated with AI, but because the only measurement we seem to be willing to make as a society and as businesses, and I blame business in a huge, huge way for this, is that the measurement has to be how much money did we save or how much money are we making to measure whether the technology.
But without understand, but that's not the point of business, is to make money, or the point of business is to at least generate a surplus. Even if you're a not-for-profit, you don't want to spend more money than you have. That's one of the laws of business, which means you have to get money from somewhere. And that has to at least cover your expenses.
Right, but this drive here is a stock market-driven drive. Like, show me, not that you're making money, show me that you're making money on an exponential curve and that you're cutting costs on the other end.
That's the idea.
But that's being used as the measurement. That's the measurement that's being used. And I think that's, somebody used the term enshittification here. We use that for an awful lot.
But apparently they're not even good at that. The only one I think partly, I did a story on this. I think CEOs are trying to hide it now. I don't think they want to talk about how many layoffs they have. Mark Benioff from Salesforce came and says, I got rid of 4,000 people because I'm using AI. Well, he didn't get a round of applause for that. They know it. So that's probably whispered in the rooms with the analysts, but they're not talking about it openly. So if that's true, and they're laying off all these people because they've got AI, then somebody's lying about that 5% number because it's bigger. There were 182,000 people or something like that laid off in IT last year. Like it's an incredible number. And 4 years after, or even let's say 2 years after COVID, I'm not sure that we're still saying we hired too many people during COVID. They're getting rid of more than 100,000 people in the tech industry alone this year again. That productivity is coming from somewhere.
So let me see if I hear you correctly here. You're saying that companies are lying about making money. Yes. Oh my God.
It's not only politicians that get to do that,
Yeah. So I think that's part of it, because that 5% number just doesn't hold. You can't. Anyway, let's just say that part of it is they're saving money they're not reporting. Part of it is they don't understand how to do this. Now, so let's go to the problem we can solve. The stock market and how that drives companies to do crazy things. I'm going to put that up as one of the problems we can't solve.
Good plan.
Just a thought. The other one, in terms of the enshittification of the world, that started with social media. That's been going on for some time. They just found a new way to pump more stuff into the pipes. And
scale.
That's not going away. The one thing that we could deal with, and I think we could deal with fairly effectively, is how if you want to try this and you don't know where to get started, and three guys sit there and say, play with it a little, try it a little, and all that sort of stuff. I think that's the issue. And as I said, I think I've done consulting with a lot of big companies. The simpler it got, the better it was. I talked to a guy who ran a mine for Inco in Indonesia. He was absolutely brilliant. This place had never never, ever shown a profit. They wrote it off as a mine. It was one of the places where you got stuck in. You had to go to somewhere that there was a backwater. And I don't know why they kept it alive. This guy, Jim Gowans, took it over, and all he did was beat the problems one by one by one. We got productivity in the mine and that's how he hired us and a pile of other people to just come in and find stuff they could do better. Their furnaces were always breaking down, and everybody sort of accepted that was the way it was going to be, and you couldn't get parts for them in fast enough. He hired a guy who just simply, by working at it constantly, ended up putting their furnaces as being over what the specs would say in terms of getting stuff out of the mines. Just crazy things. These are big pieces of equipment, and if you have to stop one, it takes forever to restart it. There's all kinds of reasons why you never want to turn off the engine on a big piece of equipment that's running in an open pit type mine. But it was a Muslim country, and they had to give them breaks for prayers 5 times a day. Nothing you can do about that, or you can be the bad employer that makes your employees angry. They actually did a ramp for some of these big pieces of equipment where one guy could come up one side and the other guy could go down the other side. So they learned to switch drivers in motion. Now, when you're dealing with hundreds of tons of ore and a 15 or half an hour lapse of a piece of machinery can mean big money every day. If it's done 5 times a day for all of these things, this is how you eat an elephant, one bite at a time.
Yep.
When I left, Gowans went on to do great things. He was thought of as the miracle worker. He turned this problem child around, and he had taken it to the point where it was now a profitable mine. And then when the price of nickel went up, it was great. And so, typical Canadian fashion, we sold it to a foreign company. Because that's what you do when you're successful in Canada. Somebody from another country buys you.
But that to me is the key thing, is find the things in your organization that are broken and work on fixing those. Yeah. And to me, AI is not necessarily the be all and end all. It's another tool in the tool chest. And, to me, it's one of the ones that you want to look at first, but it may not be the best solution. There may be, maybe a manual process is better. Maybe a human intervention versus AI is better. There's all kinds of things, but AI definitely needs to be at the forefront of looking at what the options are for solving these problems.
One of the best ways to use it is to just dump whatever it is that you're doing in there. And this is, by the way, John, why I keep pushing on the idea of having some local model that you can keep behind bars, so to speak, to take a look at. But the idea that these are all the things that we do. You talked about fixing problems. Sometimes you don't know you have problems.
Agreed.
And this is actually one of the reasons why you should be using these tools, regardless of whether you have a problem that needs solving, because sometimes you don't actually know that you have problems that need solving. And we have to figure out a way to not use AI to supplant people, but use AI to be coworkers, to be the person who works with you and so on. There was actually an interesting little study done recently where they had a programmer working on their own, and then you had programmers who were working with an AI to code. And I know that there are all sorts of stats that are floating about here, but this one was interesting because of what they did. And what they did was this: if you had just the programmer by themselves, they had, whatever the level of productivity was in there. If you had a programmer working with an AI, and I'm not talking vibe coders, I'm talking about, actual programmers, they were far more successful than if they were working on their own. Now, this is where it gets interesting. If they put 2 programmers together, the 2 programmers together did a better job of the programmer working with the AI. If you tear all of these numbers apart, what it comes down to is one person is using the AI purely as a tool to generate stuff. And that's what they're using it for. They're using it to generate a chunk of code and so forth. But they're not using it as a coworker. For AI to be useful as possible, you have to adopt it as a coworker. You have to adopt it as the person who works with your persons inside your company to get the maximum benefit out of it. You have to treat it Yeah, not as an answer machine, but as the person that you bounce
As one of
ideas
the
off, that you go back and forth on, that you actually have an honest to God conversation with. And that's when the benefits really start to go through the
Yeah.
roof. Because the difference between the AI and the additional programmer that you put in place, yes, the AI spits out stuff a lot faster, but the difference is that there's a conversation going on. You're treating it, you're treating the other human being as a partner, as you should. But if you treat the AI that way, the benefits start to increase as well. So I have trouble with the idea that we keep referring to it as a tool. And as as the two of you know, I've pushed back against the idea of calling it artificial intelligence for a long time. I like calling it synthetic intelligence as opposed to artificial intelligence, because I don't think there's anything artificial about the intelligence. The intelligence is real, but it's not artificial. It is different. And if we take advantage of why it's different and we treat it like an intelligence as opposed to a tool, we will start to see far more benefits out of it.
We're expecting it to do everything or nothing. I've been looking over the surveys because I watch all the surveys on programming and they're all over the place. But one of the ones that I watched was someone had actually surveyed programmers and found out that experienced programmers were using AI more than inexperienced programmers. That was kind of interesting. Now, in this group, 1,000 people or whatever from all these different companies, and they found that it generated a whack of code to start out with, and then they found out they had to debug that code. And they actually thought they were faster than they were, because when you track them back, they took more time going through the bugs. And I went, well, yeah, but if I sat down and I just programmed for 8 hours straight, blasted away, I'm going to put a whole pile of crap together too. Why would you start working like that? Why wouldn't you work piece by piece? And even though I was the world's lousiest programmer, I have to tell you, I'm sitting there trying to solve this problem that we've been having. And I'm looking at, I haven't programmed in PHP in 14 years. I don't even remember like it's just, but so I'm struggling with this programmer, trying to figure out where we are, and I don't know what the program's doing. So I take the stupid thing, put it into ChatGPT and say, just walk me through this program, would you? And now I know I would have spent, I don't know how many hours to go back and try and get enough to read this thing. And if I'd read it, it would be like me reading a foreign language where I think I know more than I did. So there's just one use of this. How many times has anybody back in the old days been looking at a program and just trying to structure it so you can actually figure out what it's doing, where it is? I can't believe that these tools are not generating an amazing amount of productivity in that. Use cases to test, even to test their basic programs. When I was an analyst, I stopped using specs to communicate with programmers and started using use cases.
Mm-hmm.
I said, I want to do this. Here's what it's going to do step by step. And I found out that when you stop giving a person like a big document to read that their eyes would glaze over, I'd put the use cases together and say, these are the things these people are trying to do. And programmers' eyes would light up. But also, I knew when I got the program back that it would do these things. We did a whole mainframe move, and I kept trying to prove to management this was not going to work. And why? We'd broken it down into units, and of all of the things we tried to do, 80% of them weren't working. And no matter how much they told you about how many lines of code they wrote, or how productive they were, or how much went through system testing, this dog won't hunt. And so that's the piece of breaking it down to that basic thing of, what am I trying to do? What capability do I need to do that? And then how will I make that work in the real world? Well, I don't know. I'm just saying, I'd love to hear from a programmer. Instead of all these statistics, I'd love to hear from programmers why you can't be more productive.
So a long time ago, when I was in school studying computer programming and systems analysis, this is a long time ago, I got into the habit of, we had flowcharts. Remember flowcharts? This is what we want the program to do. And you actually drew all these little diagrams. And then you were expected to write a program that followed your flowchart. And that showed that you understood what was happening. I want to point out that I was the guy who sat down, coded, and then drew a flow chart that matched.
Didn't every... Oh my God.
So my wife, who is a gazillion times better programmer than I have any hope of ever being in my entire life, and we did some work together where I would come up with the ideas and say, this is what I want to have happen. And I would take a half-hearted stab at programming it. And then she would code this thing that was actually beautiful and efficient. And it worked every single time. But
so you married her?
I married her. I worship the ground she walks on. But that's a very different way of thinking about these things. You know what you were talking about, people using these things. I actually posted something in a Discord server yesterday, which was a fascinating little chart. We had a show like 2-3 weeks ago or something like that where we were talking about the number one use being for relationships and things like this. Well, I found an interesting chart, which I posted yesterday to the Discord server. I'm going to give you the use cases for about the top 15 things that are on this thing. It's the top 100 things that AI is used for. They tracked it through 2024 and to a few weeks ago in 2025. So we've got a year and a half or 2 years worth of data. And it's really quite fascinating. So here are the top things that this stuff is being used for. Yeah, sure.
Yeah,
I'll just share my screen.
Just while you're pulling that up, Marcel, just to go back to a comment you'd made before about having conversations with AI. And I think it's a great idea and people should do it more often, because if you ask AI a question, you'll get an answer. It won't necessarily be the answer that you want. It may not be an answer that really answers the question you asked because you've asked it in an incorrect way or something. But if you have a conversation, AI gives you the option of saying, hey, have you thought about this? Or maybe you could do this, or, that type of thing. So I think the whole having a conversation with AI really does go a long way.
You were just sharing that, weren't you, Marcel?
Sorry, I accidentally closed it. By the way, every once in a while, when I come in, my wife says, who are you talking to? I'm outside on the patio, and it's like, were you talking to someone on the phone? No, I was talking to the AI.
Oh, my wife just does. My wife hates it. She really does. And
well,
I'm
I
sorry,
have to say,
but I like a female voice on my AI. I don't like, it's just, and I'm not going to change it. And she goes, oh,
it's a
are you
trust
talking
thing.
to her?
It's a trust thing. Okay, so take a look at this chart here. And it's in the Discord server. So if you want to take a look at it, this is in collaboration with Harvard Business Review, technology researcher, blah, blah, blah. Analyzed tens of thousands of web forums, blah, 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 to generate this chart, 2025, 2024. And they show you the increase and decrease of where it was the previous year in terms of its use.
Okay.
Now,
Remember, you're showing this. Remember, people have to listen to this. So you have to describe this.
All right. So in that case, the part where I went blah, 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 okay, I stand corrected. The top 100 ways people are using AI in 2025 and how they've changed since 2024. And this thing was done in collaboration with Harvard Business Review, technology researcher and author Marcel Ganger, analyzing tens of thousands of web forums like Quora and Reddit to determine the most popular ways people use generative AI. Since AI technology and human interaction with it are rapidly evolving, we compared the 2024 and 2025 findings to highlight trends and spark discussion about what might be next in the world of AI, or as I like to call it, synthetic intelligence and its relationship to humanity. So again, the chart is in the Discord server, but I'm going to cover the first 15 or so.
If you don't get to the Discord server and you're looking at this, it's like, it lists 100 things. If I've got this right, Marcel, there's an up arrow and a down arrow beside each one.
Yeah, the up arrow and down arrow shows the difference between where this was in 2024 versus where it is now. So the numbers you're seeing are where it is now, and the arrow shows the position that it was in 2024 and how that has increased. Okay.
I have to ask about one. I'm sorry, I'm stopping to ask about one. There's one on here, and you gotta look at this thing. Number 58 is rubber ducking.
96%. I don't even know what that means.
Okay, but there's a lot of other really good things here. Sorry, but okay, rubber ducking, you're the one.
have no idea what that means, and I will go look it up afterwards.
Yeah, me
Maybe
too. I'm gonna
John
find that
can
one out. But
check.
let's deal with some of the other ones that are more
Okay. So
useful for.
the number one thing, which was number one in 2024 and is still number one, it has not moved from this number one position, is therapy and companionship. This was our show 3-4 weeks ago. That is the number one use for generative AI. People just want somebody to talk to. One of the things that's been in the news for a while now is the epidemic of loneliness. COVID-19 made it worse, and we have not recovered from this. And I'm sure that it was actually a problem before COVID-19 because social media has been making a mess of our relationships for years, but COVID-19 exacerbated the problem. And so consequently, number one, people want somebody to talk to bounce ideas off of, to discuss their issues. So the number one thing is therapy and companionship. That is the primary use of generative AI. And if you're trying to figure out why there isn't more money being generated from this, it's because people just want to connect with somebody else, or in this case, a synthetic intelligence. And that's why therapy is number one, therapy/companionship. Number two, organize my life. Number three, I would argue, is closely related to number one, and that's find purpose in life. So you're looking for, what does it all mean, and what can I do, in life? Like, what can be my contribution to the world? So I find that one fascinating.
And so for people who can't see this, those three, the top three, one of them has an arrow pointing up, but it's shown very little movement. So 1, 2, and 3 are dominant, but have been for more than, like, they haven't changed. Right?
That's right. And the fact that the arrow on number one just shows it's still in the number one spot, but that's actually increasing. Okay. Yeah. So its lead as the number one use is actually wider than it was in 2024. So I find that fascinating. Number 4, enhanced learning, which I think is a wonderful, wonderful use of this. You've got somebody who is, now it doesn't have to be somebody in school, but this is why school should encourage the use of AI, or let me rephrase this, an ethical or a proper use of AI.
Yes.
To enhance learning. Okay. Explain this to me in a way that I can understand. If you've got one teacher who is trying to teach 30 kids in the class, not everybody is going to have access to the teacher. And I think that a human teacher is a wonderful thing. But I think providing children with the tools to say, explain this to me, show this to me in a way that I can understand, so that I can, we can free up the teacher to actually, deal with as many people as possible for the class.
Forget kids.
The class.
I do this all the time. My generator broke down. I got to fix it. I can't get anybody out here. I have to learn generator repair, and I got a little bit of time. Or something else goes wrong in the house. The greatest thing, and like I said, why I use the generator story all the time, is when you're out in the middle of the rain, it's freezing rain, your generator's broken down, and you've got a flashlight in one hand and a screwdriver in the other. Being able to talk to something is really good. Just say.
Yes.
No, agreed.
And
agreed.
Just to set your mind at ease, Jim, I went and looked up what rubber ducking was.
Oh, good.
What is it?
It's a debugging technique where a programmer explains their code step by step to an inanimate object, often a rubber duck, to uncover errors or misunderstandings in their logic.
Love it. Has gone down. That should go up.
Okay, so
yeah, but there may be other things that people are doing. Because now what they do,
it might be number 8. It might be number 8.
Improve code, yeah.
Improve code, yeah.
Number 5, generate code, and you'll see that it actually shows in brackets pros. Yep. Okay, and although I don't see that in the explanation, I will argue that this is a professional use of AI. Okay, so generating code has gone from number 42 to number 5 in a year.
This goes back to, like, my early days as me as a programmer. The reason why I didn't retire as a programmer, they pretty much asked me not to. They had to put me into management because I wasn't as good as everybody else. So I went up to somebody and I'd read this thing. And if you program in COBOL, you'll understand this, but there's a thing called the environment division, and you have to find a machine you're working on and all of the things that it does and all of that. So I'm taking this book and I'm reading this. I learned all this stuff, and I go up to ask one of the guys who was a real programmer in COBOL. At the time I was working with other stuff. But I said, how do you program the environment division? How do you get this together? He says, here, I'll show you. Cut. And
copy it from something else.
Copy it and paste.
Yeah.
There you go. And I went, and from there, it was, how do you use this routine? I wrote that like 2 weeks, month ago. Or there's one of them over here. Copy in. So this generating of code, even at that level, because it's, you have to remember where you put all this stuff. You have to remember how to go get it. You have to stay really organized, which gets back to being me. Now, I don't have to be organized. I can just ask it, can you write this for me?
Good programmers copy, great programmers steal. I'm sure that was.
So
we refer to it as permanently borrowing.
I was doing a Google form the other day. I haven't done one in months. Can you do this form for me?
I was at a client yesterday. I was visiting a client out of town. So they were asking about, I referenced this thing in a document that was written several years ago, and we have copies of all these documents in PDF. And is there a way to look for a string inside all of these PDF documents to look for this reference to this thing? And you can't just grep, like for the Linux heads out there, you can't just go grep space, the word space, something PDF, because the PDF is not a text file per se. Yeah. So you can't really do it that way. And I know that there's a way to do this, but we had just had a discussion about AI with my client saying, no, I can't come up with a good reason why we'd ever want to do something like that. And this is not 5 minutes later that the question about looking for this in a PDF document. And I said, hold on a second. And I could have actually, as you put it, Jim, gone to the books, gone to the web, searched, sat down, written a script, experimented with a script, tried different things, and eventually come up with something that would be a good answer. No, I just asked ChatGPT. I've got a bunch of PDFs files. I'm looking for a script. I'm running a Linux system. What can I do? And it gave me a one-liner. I put the one-liner. 30 seconds later, they have their answer after looking through several hundred different documents. And then I looked at it and I said, this is what AI is good for. I could have spent a half my day putting a solution together for you to give you this answer, but I gave it to you in 30 seconds. That's what it's good for.
As in 90 is choosing wine, 91 is customer service. I love the fact that more people use it to choose wine than for customer service.
Yeah, really.
That makes
so I'll give you one. Okay, so I'm going to really rapidly go down to about number 16 here, just for fun.
Okay.
Very quickly, without actually going into any detail. Number 5 was generate code pros. Number 6, generate ideas. Makes sense. Number 7, fun and nonsense. I love that as a, just do silly shit for me. Number 8, improve code. Again, the pros here. And that one has been going up as well. Number 9, creativity, bouncing ideas. Number 10, healthier living. Makes perfect sense. Number 11, prepare for interviews. There's a beauty. Act as my interview partner. Number 12, generate relevant images. Jim, you and I had a discussion about this just yesterday. Number 13,
we'll come back to that.
Specific search. Number 14, simple explainers. And number 15, this one is great, and this one I use regularly. Cook with what you have. I have opened my refrigerator, pointed the camera at it, had ChatGPT open and say, this is what I have in my refrigerator. This is what I have in my pantry. Give me some ideas about what I can make with this. I do this regularly. It is so freeing. It is so amazingly freeing. Give me some ideas.
Of all of the business ideas I want to do, I want to create an AI version of a cooking assistant.
Yes.
And the core is there, but I wanted to be able to do that to make this work, because I would just love to be able to talk. My wife would kill me because she really does dislike me talking to this AI. She thinks I'm nuts.
But my wife tells me it's creepy.
Yeah. But to sit in your kitchen and be able to go and say, okay, can you check this recipe for me? What's the next step I do? That's, I mean, I'm,
Mm-hmm.
I'm totally
Yep.
into that.
Yep.
But I want to go back and say, so we've got this piece here, and I want to tie up with this problem that I had, because we're getting to real problems, and I think that's really what we're talking about. First, start by finding out the things that bug you in your world, but use a list like this to start to get people going to people and saying, "What should you do using AI?" is a really dumb question.
Yeah.
Lists like this are just perfect to get people thinking about this, and then just get them to suggest stuff. I've done this with large companies from AT&T in the US to other places where we just took, and TD has done it, and tremendous success in terms of their ability to now start to generate ideas to improve their business. And their number of patents that TD has gone up astronomically. And they're suggested by employees. Because you get them thinking like this, and then you just say, suggest to me the things that we should do. Keep that list. When you get a whole pile of suggestions and you want to rate them really quickly and start to work with them, there's some interesting tools in portfolio management for doing that. So you can take that. So don't be afraid of getting a lot of suggestions. There are ways to deal with them really easily, and then get to going that. But I want to go back to this and maybe close off with this, Marcel. This is the typical thing that happens for me with AI. And just a great example was this one that I think you solved it, but I can't believe I decided, okay, I'm writing an article on AI and I want to talk about this. I want to talk about a use case for a small town. And that was my thing. So I looked at this and said, I got a friend who runs a restaurant here. It's called the Dominion Tavern. And when you do specials.
Is that the Dominion Tavern in Minden?
Yeah.
What an awesome place.
Oh, it's fantastic. It's fabulous. So Sean runs the Dominion, and he does jokes and all these sorts of things. But I thought, you could have your specials done up for a restaurant. Wouldn't that be a great idea? Where you could, and so I got 80% of the way. And I think this is a possible barrier that people can get to. So I went on to, and I typed in, I said, look, I'm going to have meatloaf, I'm going to have this, I'm going to have a couple things. And I just put some stuff that I knew from the Dominion menu. I said, write me a menu. Here's the price of them all, and put some pictures together so that I could do this as a specials piece. I did that. Easy peasy. Now, where I had problems was when I asked AI to generate an image. I went to Gemini, and it generated the best image. It actually did. But then it told me it couldn't print it. So I went to ChatGPT and said, can you do this? ChatGPT gave me the worst thing. And this is where it gave me a picture of what the menu would look like sitting on the table. Right? And then I'm banging my head against the wall saying, how do I get this thing to print? And then, I think I went to Grok, and Grok gave me some things. But basically, it gave me, and the ChatGPT one was the most frustrating, because eventually it said, or maybe it was a Gemini, I can't remember, but eventually it said, no, you have to get some desktop publishing program. Get yourself a desktop publishing program and do this up. I'm going, well, that sort of defeats the purpose. And I'm wondering now you solved it. I am not worthy. I don't know how you solved it, but you came up with something that I was able to print it easily.
Yeah.
First, I don't know how you did that.
To be honest, all I did was I saved the image as a JPEG, and I just printed the JPEG.
Oh, okay. So you solved it the same way I did.
Yeah. Really, you already have the tools to do that. The other thing that you can do as well is when you've just got it open as an image on the whatever browser you happen to be looking at, you can just do a control print from there, print it.
So you ended up solving the same. But this is what I mean by the 80% thing. And I think this is a problem that you get to, is people get something ambitious that they want to do. They get started on it. They get 80% of the way through it, or 90% of the way through it. They can't finish it, and they get frustrated and leave it.
And they give up.
And I think that's a real problem that AI needs to solve in some aspects. And I think that is a legitimate thing that people don't realize, is that if they're making the possibility of a use case, but they don't make it work from the start, that's a problem. Yeah. So this is the Dominion Hotel and Pub, and this is the menu sitting right there. And I eventually solved it by loading a JPEG myself and then printing the JPEG. Is part of what's wrong with AI is that
it should have just told you to just print the image. Yeah.
They don't finish it. And I see this all the time where there's something you can do, but you can't quite do it to the ultimate finished product that you want. And that's a danger. Now, I think to some extent, and part of that, has been accuracy and all those things. And there's no reward for cleaning this up. Like, I think when we actually analyze ChatGPT-5, we're going to find out it cleaned up a lot of things that were sort of messy. Accuracy being one in some cases.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And some other things that it can do. As I'm starting to play with it, the think deeply piece and being able to use that, just fascinating. But you don't get any kudos for that. It's like being Apple. You don't unless you amaze people with that one big thing, your next version is it's no good. And I think that's a barrier in the industry. But I think it's one that you should cope with. And I think it's a danger, and people need to know that it's there. If there are consultants out there, or people who are doing this with customers, making sure you don't get to the 80% and can't take it across the line is going to be a danger.
Well, maybe we can wrap this up with a suggestion here. And maybe I can even find the original link to the image. I actually got it off Reddit, the list that I showed you here.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe that would be a good thing. Just print this sucker off, put it beside your desk as inspiration, because we keep going over the problem, which is, what do I do with this? How do I, I make use of this? Well, here's 100 different ideas that you can use. Print it off, stick it over your desk, and then, join us here next week after you've had it over your desk in the Discord, wherever, and let us know how it worked out for you, because I think that would be a good way to do it.
Yeah, and I'm always late with putting the show notes up. We've talked about all of the stuff that I do in a week, and that's why if anybody wonders why show notes don't get there fast enough, it's because I'm doing all this other stuff. But I promise I will put this in the show notes, along with a couple of ways that people can start to attract new ideas and rate them.
Ian's already printed it, so
and Ian's already ahead of it, but that's bonus. So let's make that a challenge to anybody out there. Print this off. And Ian, thank you. I just invited a couple of people to come to the show today so we could actually figure out what it was like with an audience. And I think we may actually post that people can drop in if they like going forward, because I think it's worked out excellently. I'll wait for the feedback that we get from the people. I think it was only Ian. I only invited a couple people because I didn't want 20 people.
Well, because we didn't know how to do it.
Yeah. But I hope that we've demonstrated that sometimes you just got to get in. What is that? The magic school bus?
Yes.
Messy. Yeah. Ask questions.
Take chances.
Take chances. Yeah.
I love Miss Frizzle. She's fantastic. Magic School has wonderful stuff.
Anyway, all right. This has been great, guys. Thank you very much. John, welcome back to Canada. He's been away, but he's back. Yeah.
I am back.
Get to you there. Live long and prosper. Okay. We'll see you guys.
Until next time.
Thanks a lot. Thanks, Ian, for dropping in. Thanks a lot for joining us. You had other things you could have done with your time, and you still spent it with us if you got this far. So thanks a lot, and we will talk to you next week. Print the list and try something.